Welcome to another segment of Keep to Be with Pete. Today I'm shooting at a different angle, as you can see in the studio, and topic we want to cover is creativity. I thought it'd be important to just take a few minutes to talk about this, because almost every segment that you tune in, I mentioned, let's help create the beat you keep. So creativity, create the beat you keep, creating, what is it? Over the years, I've looked at a number of different sources on this, but not continuously, intermittently, for various reasons. So way back in college and graduate school and all that, I was looking at creativity in the big, broad sense of the word. And then in business, I looked at it a little bit more closely focused. And of course, in the world of music and art, you always have that in the back of your mind, right? What is creating? Who's creating these rhythms? How did they solve these problems, and so forth? So I thought we'd take a quick jog through that today. And I'll mention a few sources that I've looked at over the years, but there's a lot of different books and studies on creativity. Two of the ones that I really enjoyed was The Creators, A History of Heroes of the Imagination, Daniel Borston. So here he's talking about the real big picture, all the creation myths and accounts in the various religions of the world: Hinduism, Buddhism, Taoism, Judeo-Christian, Islam. There's creation stories. And naturally, what's the operative word here? Creation. And you'll be surprised at the wide spectrum of creation accounts and what is creativity. And he outlines that for you in the book. And then he takes you through various points in history, science, music, art, and various pivot points as to what they call creativity and creation, the creators, how they're looked at, what does it mean. So that was one very, very interesting book. You may want to take a look at it, part of it, get a synopsis of it. Another book that I enjoyed a lot years ago when I was in graduate school and then again in business, Creativity, Flow and the Psychology by, and his name is so difficult to pronounce, he's a Hungarian fellow, Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. Creativity and the flow process. You may have heard of the flow process, but in this book he's defining, like, what do we call creativity? Anything from solving a little problem around your kitchen, fixing a little gadgetry or a cabinet, fixing a screw or something, all the way up to creativity in society and making an impact. So he talks about things that are needed for creativity. I thought we could start there. 3 things are needed for creativity. A culture that contains symbolic rules, rules that have domains, okay? And rules that govern them. Music has rules. Art and drawing and perspective, there are rules. In science, there's methodology, there's experimental testing, there's validation, there's peer review. And so you need a culture that contains symbolic rules, a person who brings novelty into a certain domain within that society, and a field of experts who will recognize it. Of course, the field of experts sometimes are way behind on recognizing it. Take Van Gogh, who sold 1 painting in his lifetime. The experts eventually caught up, and that happens. But nonetheless, you need those 3 things roughly to have creativity that impacts a whole society. Einstein's theory of relativity, he had certain mathematical abilities. He was very much immersed in theories of physics and how the universe moves and so forth, and then voila, it just doesn't happen, but it seems to happen in a flash after a long period of study and work. And that's all mentioned in that book, Creativity, Flow and the Psychology of Discovery and Invention. And this whole flow concept is pretty interesting. But anyway, what they talk about in there is, so I studied that. Then I'm in business world, in that part of my career, and multiple careers. And what do business people want? They want creative problem solving. Well, how are we going to approach this new product? Who's going to create the branding, the pitch, the marketing? Well, what about solving these manufacturing problems? Well, what about the shipping. There's a whole dynamic problem here. We can't get the product from here to there, or the raw materials are too far away. Who's solving all this? And it's a form of creative problem solving. It may not impact the whole of society, but it's going to impact that segment in a big way. And people with imagination and thinking and different departments and cross currents come together, and sometimes like magic, you know, you get a solution. And companies want to try to get more than the random solution. So naturally they do a lot of team building and a lot of cross-referencing and a lot of diversity on the teams. Oh, I need a marketing guy, I need a finance guy. And I need people from different backgrounds and different parts of the society that have different types of training. And when we put that all together, can we increase the speed and the number of times we get those breakthrough moments? Right? So, okay, so the very broad thing like creating the universe, then how does society view it? Like Beethoven's creation and Michelangelo's creations are recognized by the whole society as having major creative impact. Whereas somebody, paints something local in their town and they have some nice images, it's important and it's creative, but not on a whole societal impact level. So, there's various degrees of this. Okay, so then you keep taking it down to the practical. And the rules or the principles that I learned over the years that are very helpful and that can help us create the beat we keep would be, you have to be in context, immersed in one of these domains, in one of these areas of endeavors of human life. If it's cooking and you're going to go all the way through culinary school, if it's music and you're going to play the drum set, this complicated contraption that we have, you are more likely to make creative breakthroughs that impact the drumming community, such that the experts and all the people that listen to it will eventually say, oh wow, that's significant. You're more likely to do that if you've been playing for a substantial amount of time and working to grow and develop and listen and take things in and change, and willing to experiment different sounds on your drum set, different heads, maybe different parts, and you're willing to keep going at this study. I think of it as a study for a long period of time. And they talk about this in this book on creativity and flow. We spend so much time in our lives needing to survive. There's work, there's obligations, there's family, there's all these sort of things. So how much time is left to pursue the domain, the thing which you want to become or make a creative breakthrough in? And there's only so much time, and you got to protect that time, and you have to protect you can't be exhausted, and you can't be so spent that it's hard to do anything. So you got to carve out your time, you have to protect that time, and then you have to have a sort of a basis of operation. All right, what's my fundamentals? That's why many times in our segments I'm talking about the basics. This is the basic of your recipe. This is the fundamental. This is how you'll start. And from these ingredients, from these fundamentals, once you would be spending a lot of time trying to master these fundamentals, you'll start creating the beat you keep. That's really where I think the whole gist of what I'm trying to do is based upon. It's you have to have a love of the instrument. You have to carve out some time for yourself. You have to protect that time. You have to be fresh and willing and ready and able to do it. Sometimes you have to be fierce in protecting that time. Yet you have to have an open mind. You have to listen. I don't care what genre you're in. I don't care if you're going to stay deep in one field and not go a little bit wider in the others. We've had some segments on that where you might want to integrate some other things while you stay a jazz player. You want to bring some world because it grooves in, or if you're a rock player or a soul or whatever, you may bring in some other elements, but you'll spend your time in one area. But you have to stay deep and committed and focused on everything that's happening there. Then you're listening to the music, you're playing along with the music, you're playing along with the musicians, whether it's jam sessions, rehearsals, or your band, and finally your question comes up to, okay Pete, so now the band's got a new bunch of tunes or some new arrangements, so what am I doing to create that? Boom, all the work you've done, all the ingredients you have, all of the dedicated hours you've put in structured practice that has some logic to it, not random that you felt like doing, but structured fundamentals. When you hear music, you interact with the musicians and the music. Now you're going to create something that makes an impact. Is it going to make a dramatic societal impact? Wow, that's one of the beats of the decade. That we don't know. But we do know you have a much better chance of being successful and making an impact in that context, solving that problem, if you've done all the preparatory work, all the exploratory work, all of the open-mindedness, and the structured practice. That's how you're going to create the beat you keep. And sometimes if you do enough of it long enough, you might just hit on a few or more than a few memorable moments that if you're lucky and you're in the right, there's some luck here, and you're in the right environment, and you're recorded, and you're with the right top flight musicians, you'll be memorable such that the field of experts will even say, oh wow, yeah, on that recording, wow, he did such a great job on that. I love the way he played that, the way she played that, because there's many women drummers now, which there weren't years ago. Okay, so that's my brief take on creativity, all the way from the biggest and most theological and philosophical concepts into like the psychological analysis of what is creativity and what things might be required, then to the practical business world, and all the way down to us as drummers. Create the beat you keep, have your fundamentals, keep an open mind, listen all the time, take things in. And regardless of where this is coming from, I mean, sometimes on the internet there's just somebody demonstrating a bunch of beats or licks, but maybe you pick something out of that you can incorporate into your foundation. A lot of times, I remember years ago, there were way more working gigs. So I used to use the thing of like, I saw some drummer at the Holiday Inn. He was killing it the other night. The Holiday Inn, they would go. Yeah, he was a lounge drummer, and there's 4 or 5 things I liked. I'll take them. Don't worry about it. And don't, look down on this or look upon that as anything. It's a source of information. You can quickly assess it after you've been playing a long period of time. Don't need that. That's good. I don't need this. And so forth. But open-mindedness, strong fundamentals, a lot of dedicated practice hours when your mind is fresh and your body's fresh, and then start building upon it, and I think you're well on the way. So remember, we want to create the beat we keep. A little discussion about creativity I thought was in order at this point in time, and we're well into 2025, so as I said in my last segment, we'll be getting into some reviews of the year and some projections of what we're going to do next year. And there's still a few surprises left this year. So remember, thanks for watching. Create the beat you keep. Keep the beat with Pete. Peace out.